Emily here. I just finished the book Playful Parenting, and it was an extremely valuable resource, and I wanted to share some thoughts on it. I had my local library order it for me. If you didn't know this, your local library probably will allow you to do purchase requests. My library orders almost everything I ask for if the vendors have it available. They've ordered probably 15, 20 books I wanted, so fantastic resource for anything you want to read. Anyway, so I wanted to read Playful Parenting because before I was a parent, I was a nanny and a kindergarten teacher, and I was very playful. And after I became a parent, that wasn't there so much anymore. I think your ego is less invested when you're not the parent, and that you are less concerned in a lot of ways about whether or not you're teaching your children the right thing, like to behave properly. Even as a person who I'm a gentle parent. I'm pretty consistent with it. I've certainly never hit my kid and extremely rarely yelled. I don't think I've ever yelled. I've raised my voice though. I've talked sternly, but that's about as crazy as I've gotten. But even with that, you do still, even with the understanding like, this behavior is normal and behavior is about emotions and all of those things, you still end up not always coming from the place you want to and not having all the tools that you would like to have to help certain situations. This is filling in a big gap for me on how to handle some situations that I'm having trouble with because my older son is 2.5, which is considered by the Giselle Institute of Childhood Psychology, I think that's the name, the age of peak disequilibrium. 2.5 is very difficult. So a lot of my stuff that comes from, Dan Siegel or, like how to talk so kids will listen and listen so kids will talk. And those, all of the classics, happy parent, happy child, I don't know, drawing blanks right now. All that stuff. And most importantly, John Holt. It's not quite landing at this point in time. So I was happy that the book happened to come into the library after, while my son was about 2.5, because 2, I really didn't need it that much. 2.5, I really needed it. So here are the main things that it's helped me with and some examples. I've just been reading this book the past week. I've just finished it today. So number 1, obviously the main thesis of the book is bring more play into your life. Here's what play is, here are some ways to do it, and it's the right nurture close connection, solve behavior problems, encourage confidence. So one of the ways that I've been using what was in this book that is suggested is as soon as you see a problem, involve play. So one thing, let's take like somebody who does not have a huge amount of respect for children might do. They see a problem building up, like, oh, I can see that kid's gonna hit that kid. And then they wait until kid A hits kid B and then they go and punish them. That's generally not gonna be the way gentle parents handle it. Somebody maybe over here might see kid A hits kid B and we go up and discuss with kid A and kid B, like, hey, how are you feeling? What's going on here? How can we make it up to them? Or we might connect, give a hug, and then, connect and then correct. Another way of dealing with this that I'm finding to be very successful is when I start to see a problem coming. So let's say kid A, my older son, goes to hit kid B, my baby. Instead of stopping his hand, in Janet Lansbury kind of thing, this would be another way to handle it, right? Stopping his hand and then pulling him in, or stopping his hand, moving him away from the situation, and then trying to address it. What I'm doing instead is I run up and I bop my older son on the head, Xander on the head, bop! I'm gonna hit you! And then I run away. And then that really distracts him, and it brings him a lot of what he needs as a 2.5-year-old, which is connection and play, to deal with some of the thoughts and feelings he's having, which he's wanting to hit. That's what he wants to do right now to solve his problems. And him and I have discussed how to solve your problems using your words. Well, if you ask that person, we had a specific situation recently where he hit somebody, and I said, were you angry? Were you sad? And you just said that the other child had something he wanted, so he hit it and took it. And I said, well, he would have given it to you he said, that's hard. And it is. It really is hard to verbalize your feelings versus to just brutalize someone and take what you want. So he was 100% on point with that. So he does understand the concepts, but he needs to play them out as a child to deal with them. Playing is like thinking for children. So that's one thing, to stop situations where they are. The other is to address common occurrences in your house. Use play to address the themes that are coming up over and over again. So hitting would be one of them. I did want to clarify, my son doesn't have a crazy hitting problem. Most 2-year-olds go through a hitting phase, particularly 2-year-old boys, who have a new child in the household. He's very interested in who's strong, who's tall, who's big. So it's just a normal thing that he has to deal with. Anyway, another thing we've been having an issue with is that guy. If you can't tell, that's the baby, not the 2-year-old. When we go to lay down to put him to sleep for nap time, Big Brother always wants to yell, scream, come into the room, wake us up, and then run out of the room. So we had been laying down together, and we tried to come up with agreements about how to handle it, like, well, we'll play first, or we'll play after, or you can do this or that, or how about if I put on this alarm, and he is very participatory in coming up with agreement. We do collective decision making, so we can try to get into a win-win situation, but he's not always able to follow through on that agreement as a 2.5-year-old. And so recently, he came in and woke us up, and as has been happening for weeks, and instead of doing my normal thing like, hey, listen, we've had an agreement about this, blah, 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 I started joking, hamming it up, over-exaggerating it. Hey, you get out of this room! No, coming in this room! Okay, brother's out of the room, we're going to sleep now. And we did that for a long time, and he's asked to play that game 2 or 3 times since then, and actually we've been able to I've been able to put Zeph to sleep more times successfully than I had been able to in previous weeks. We're still not getting 100% on that, because a lot of Xander's thing is that he wants my attention. He wants to play with his brother. He doesn't want us to go to sleep. He wants us all to be out here together having fun. So he is going to have trouble sticking with an agreement, or even once he's processed it with play, doing the thing I want him to do, right? But a lot more success. So dealing with problems before you see they become an issue, addressing common occurrences in your house that are behavioral issues, and then the other really great advice that I saw in this book was about actually just coming up to your kid and asking them how to connect when they're having behavioral issues. Because you'll always hear, yes, connect before you correct. But as adults, number one, we don't take the connect as an opportunity to play, which is probably a place we should be coming from more often. And I'm not going to lie, and this book doesn't lie, like choosing to play and be playful, especially when you're upset, is hard. That's why I'm focusing on the point of like heading the problem off, because once the problem's already begun, it's a little bit harder to do. I can't give advice towards that. I haven't reached that level. But when you see there's problems happening again and then, you can, just like we would ask for their input on like, hey, how can we solve this problem? We know that a lot of the times the problem with a young child is that they don't feel connected to anybody. So have them join in on that decision making too. I see you're having a lot of issues here. I'd like to connect with you. How can we connect? And then even once you're connected, you could be able to address some other problems that kids like to pretend aren't happening, like, hey, you're probably hungry right now. You're probably thirsty right now. You're probably tired right now. They want to avoid talking about those issues or addressing them when they're feeling like you're kind of just a jerk and telling them what to do. So making sure you're connected first before even addressing those physical issues, I think, could be extremely successful. They have another thing in the book called holding time, but I have a little story about that, and I want to address that in a separate video. Highly suggest this book for getting great ideas on how to become a more playful parent. I certainly am finding my mood better. I'm finding my son more cooperative. I'm finding our relationship stronger, and I find myself expending less energy because I'm not sitting having to play for 30 minutes. This guy keeps talking about like, oh, and then set aside an hour. Like, I don't know anything about that. But instead of yelling at him for 30 seconds, I can play about an idea for 3 minutes. So downsides to this book, honestly, is the same downside that there are to a lot of parenting books and podcasts from my perspective, which is that they insert their political opinions in there that I could really do without. But that's easy to read through. If you couldn't read through that, you couldn't pretty much read anything. Okay, so this is Amelia at Look Mom's Happy. See you next time.